Hey folks, hope you're doing good today. Now we've got another one of these album reviews, or it's an EP we've got for you today. And I like doing this, and I like doing this for this guy as well, because he's very supportive of the stream. He's in a bunch of bands, and he's made a bunch of submissions. He always shares and likes my music posts and all of that stuff. So yeah, I'm ready to help out friends that help me out as well. Very, very cool. Now, this is a band. We've had them on the channel with one of their tracks. The band is called 9 Stitch Method. And as I say, they got a 4-track EP for us today. If you remember their style, they've got a mixture of styles. It's a bit deathcore. It's a bit nu metal. It's a bit kind of alternative metal. All of those kind of things mixed together. Very modern. So yeah, it was good stuff. And we're going to check out the EP today. I've got a bit of information about the band. It's a 2-man band, Patrick and Joshua. They both do bits on the guitars. Patrick does some vocals and stuff. They formed in 2016. They're from the USA, and it turns out they've played a bunch of live shows as well, which is pretty cool, because they can't, there's only 2 of them in the band. They can't play all the instruments on stage. So what they did on stage apparently is Joshua played the guitar, Patrick was on the vocals, and then I guess they set all the rest of the stuff up pre-mixed and played that through the speakers. He did say to me in a message here that they were a bit controversial on the live scene, because this, I've done a video all about this kind of stuff where you haven't got all the members of the band to be able to play a live show and to think about how you're going to do that. And it's still a controversial thing because people expect a whole band and a drummer and a bassist and all the rest of it. And if you haven't got those guys on stage hitting their instruments, it turns a lot of people off. But I think there's ways to get around that, as I said in my video. It turns out that they got signed to a label called Brutal Business, which is cool. And they've brought in a producer for this record because they were doing it all themselves before that. Now, this record's called Somatic Part 1. The first track is called Wayward, and we're just going to get straight into it. So this is what it sounds like. I'll get this up on the screen. That's what the album art looks like, and I've got all my stuff on the screen now so we can see how wide the music is and the kind of waveform and stuff as well. So I'll talk about that stuff. Here we go. Wayward. Got the energy straight out the gate in the drums, ripping double bass. Let's have a quick look at the spectrum, nice and wide. Let's have a look at the waveform, nice and balanced, good. Some vocal effects. Yeah, the drums sit nicely in the mix. Got a lot of double bass, but it's not overtaking the mix. Ripping. Hear the bass in the mix there, sliding about. As I said, these guys have got a deathcore-ness to them, which you can definitely hear, but it's also got a nu metal edge to it as well. The vocals got a nu metal sound. And it's got that nu metal sound to it as well, later nu metal I would say. Mixed in with the death, it's got that kind of alternative metal sound to it, definitely. It's a different mix, the deathcore bands today are straight up deathcore. This isn't that. It's got a flavour of deathcore to it, but it's definitely got that nu metal edge to it as well. You can just hear it in the general tone of the music. Cool. I haven't heard those 2 mixed together. These kind of drums, this ripping double bass, that ain't nu metal. That's pure death. Heavy. Definitely the vocal effects that they've used, the way the vocal sits in the mix, the tone of the vocal, and how it's been recorded. That's nu metal for sure. I was a nu metal kid. I like nu metal. Don't think nu metal's a bad word in my book. Nu metal was my gateway to heavy music. That was heavy. Nice mix, as I say, of deathcore and nu metal, and kind of just that alternative metal kind of scene that you had in the late 90s and the early 2000s. It's got that sound. It kind of reminds me a bit of Mudvayne, particularly in the vocal, the way the vocal sounds, the kind of distortion and the effects that they've got on the vocal there. It's got that Mudvayne sound, and Mudvayne were one of the best, kind of nu metal bands there were. They're pretty mathy, pretty technical, and they had a great sound for the time even. So yeah, that's a compliment, by the way, guys. Now we'll just keep going on. The next track is called Ether. So let's hear this one. A bit of synth in this one. Bit industrial. Drum sound good. Let's have a quick look at the stereo, looking good. Waveforms looking good. No complaints. Definitely the vocal effects, the way the vocal sits in the music, the tone that he's got naturally, and the way he's working the words and stuff. Nu metal, and I like that. I haven't heard that vocal since the last time I listened to the Mudvayne record, and it's cool. It's been lost now because some people aren't into it, but it's heavy. It's got a good sound. It sits well in the mix. Drums are ripping again on this one. They've done a good job with the double bass and the snare, because the snare is absolutely ripping. You can hear it's MIDI drums because it's just so fast. But I don't mind that. I don't mind the drums sounding a bit kind of MIDI drums when they're that fast, because not many drummers in the world can actually drum that fast and that clean. So it's almost got to be done by a computer if you want to put it in your music. I don't mind it. It just sounds ripping. And as I was saying, as long as the bass and the snare, bass drum and the snare aren't too loud in the mix and aren't overtaking the mix with just all that, you've done a good job. Nice guitar riffage in this one as well. We've got the arpeggios in the highs and that boom, 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 boom kind of low-endy modern tone to the guitars. Tight distortion, but very thick, very low-endy. I enjoyed that track. I like the way it started out with the kind of effects and synths and stuff. Again, that's kind of, bringing in the nu metal edge to it as well. I like these guys. I'm enjoying this. It's nu metal, and I haven't heard nu metal for a while, so in a way, to me, it's fresh because I just haven't listened to this music in a long, long time. Now, I know it's not a fresh sound, and, this sound is actually getting on a bit now, 20 years. I don't know where the time's gone. So you could, I'd say 30 years is when you start talking old school, but these guys, this is heading for an old school sound now. It's certainly not a fresh sound. But to me, today, listening to it now, it's sounding fresh because I just haven't listened to this kind of sound in a long, long time. And it's hitting my ears. It sounds like home because I've heard it before, but it's hitting my ears in a fresh way because I haven't heard it in a long, long time. So good stuff. We'll move on to the third track. This one's called Agra Phobic. So let's hear it. Good sound.
This room is gonna get empty. No room to breathe. Going grounds of freak
drums sit nicely in the mix in all these tracks. The guitars have got a nice tone, they're panned out nice and wide. It's a thick tone, it's a low-endy tone. It's a tight tone, modern. We get the ripping drums in every track, which sounds great. It's got that vocal tone, working the vocals, long, drawn out, going with the guitar riffs to build up the music. We've got the nice arpeggio stuff as well, so they're mixing up the guitar in. They're both guitarists in this band, and I guess one guy likes to do the low-endy stuff and the kind of stuff, and then whoever else likes to do the more kind of higher-end arpeggio, chordy kind of stuff, and it sounds great. That's a great way to work two guitarists. This one's big. It's got an atmosphere to it, it's very wide. Let's have a look at the spectrum. Yeah, very wide. Got a good low end to it, you can see on the waveform there. Yeah. And again, double bass isn't ruining the mix. You can hear it, it's cutting through very nicely, but it's not overtaking the mix. This one's nice. They've moved it about. It's got a nice guitar tone. I've put more effects on the vocals, reverbed it out, pushed it back in the mix. That sounds cool, sounds atmospheric. Emotion. Cool. Sounds good. Had a nice sound in the ears, that did. The effects and the vocal effects they'd used on that there, reverb, bit of distortion, bit of saturation and stuff, pushed it back in the mix in terms of volume, and it just sounded wide and atmospheric and emotional. Pretty cool. I'm definitely getting a strong nu metal vibe from these guys. They describe themselves as a mixture of death metal and nu metal, and I totally agree with that. But I'm going to say these guys are a nu metal band, but they're just a heavy, deathy nu metal band. And back in the day, there weren't any deathy especially two-man, but any deathy nu metal bands that I can think of. Nu metal, you know, it was kind of hip-hoppy. That was where the kind of it went for a big part with Korn and Limp Bizkit and Deftones and all of that stuff. And even the first Slipknot album had a lot of rap and all of that on it. But this isn't rappy at all. It's not nu metal rap. The vocal's heavy, it's shouty, it's drawn out, it's got a lot of emotion in it, screaming. So the vocal sounds, the tone of the vocals nu metal. The effects that they've used on the vocal sound nu metal. As I say, it reminds me very much of Mudvayne, and they had a great sound. But the kind of the whole tone of the music is very nu metal. There's nu metal riffs in there, but the drumming isn't nu metal whatsoever. That blazing double bass, blazing blast beats. You didn't hear that in nu metal, or at least the bands I was into, and I was really into nu metal, so they must have passed me by if there was some bands that did that. So yeah, it's strange. They're very nu metal, but at the same time, they haven't got elements of nu metal that were really fundamental elements, like the rapping, like the hip hop element, the drumming. The hip hop drumming was a big part of nu metal. But what these guys have managed to do is capture the nu metal tone, capture the nu metal sound, capture the nu metal vibe, but also weave in there blazing double bass and blast beats and deathness and make sure that the vocal really is not hip-hop whatsoever. It's the kind of just the heaviness part, but because of the way they've put the vocals on the effects on the vocals, it still sounds nu metal. This guy started rapping and doing a bit of hip-hop stuff, they'd be pure nu metal. But because they've brought in those other elements, and because they've left out some other elements of nu metal that were really fundamental elements, it's a very nice mix, is my point there. It's a nice mix of music. It's different. It sounds old school, and I'm going to say new, because I'm just going to say nu metal is old school. It's 20 years old. But it doesn't, it's a weird thing. Like the way I kind of describe it usually is, it feels like home, but then you start noticing things around the room that weren't there before, and you think, hang on, have I walked into the wrong house? It's kind of like that. Now, this is the last track on the album, Absalons. We've heard this one on the show, so I know it's good, but we'll check it out again. This is the last one on the album. It's been a good one so far. I've enjoyed it. Let's check this one out. Heavy. Lasting drums, shouty, angry vocals, drawn out, working with the guitars, spoken word, all the good stuff. This sounds nu metal, sounds progressive at the same time. So it's got all these elements that you recognise and go, yeah, I recognise that. But you've not heard them right next to each other or blended together in this way, or at least I haven't. So it's weird, as I say, it feels like home, but at the same time, it's got a freshness and a newness to it and stuff you haven't noticed before. Like these blazing drums, and the way the drums sit in the mix, and the kind of production on the drums is different. They don't sound nu metal. They bring in a deftness and a heaviness, and a tempo, and a vibe that you didn't get in other nu metal bands. There's this part now, with the bass things as well. They say these guys remind me a lot of Mudvayne. I'm sure they must be into Mudvayne. And Mudvayne were one of the, really one of the best nu metal bands there were. High level musicians, the bassist was just ridiculous, great drumming, great guitaring. Super vocalist. I must admit, LD is the album I listened to. I think they went a bit off the rails after that, but that album is so good, and it's such a good nu metal album. And when you get compared to Mudvayne, or when your band reminds you of Mudvayne, reminds someone else of Mudvayne, you've done a good job. Because they were a great band. Yeah. I think the real kind of clincher for this, the game changer for this is the drums. The way the drums sound, the drumming style. It's new, it's different. It's different for this kind of music. Yeah. Those bass bits in there. Down. If the Mudvayne guy was hearing that, the bassist, he'd go, yeah, dudes, fair play. So yeah, that's the album. It's only 4 tracks EP, but I've enjoyed that. I think we've had a good talk about it as well. It's kind of harkened me back to the old nu metal days. And as I say, I haven't listened to that stuff in a good while. Because I really did fall out with nu metal. I enjoyed nu metal when it was fresh, when it first came out, 96, 97, and into the kind of 2000. And then kind of the third album from all of those bands, Korn, Limp Bizkit, Slipknot, even Deftones, to be honest with you. I know White Pony was good, but after that, all those bands went downhill for me. They went off the rails. They started making sounds and albums that I wasn't really into. And as I say, nu metal for me was more of a gateway into the heavier stuff. You know, I liked the shouty parts of nu metal. I liked the Slipknot album because it was heavy. There were real heavy parts in it. Those were my favorite parts. And then when I just got into that thing, then I was into all the heavy. I just got into hardcore straight after that. The heaviest hardcore you could do, mathcore, all of that stuff. So yeah, nu metal is a great gateway drug to getting into really heavy music, I think, because it did for me and all of my mates as well. It was our gateway drug. We went from kind of Nirvana into the, early Metallica stuff and thinking, yeah, this is cool. But when nu metal came along in 96, we were all digging it big time. We were all kind of just feeling it big time. We went to all the gigs that we could for the nu metal bands, and they had a good heavy live sound as well, the nu metal bands. They, the Korn and stuff, they had the 7-string guitars, which was different for the time. It was tuned down low. They had a good low end and all the rest of it. The bass sounded good. And it was heavy music to listen to. And then when it started to kind of go a bit more pop and all of that, I was like, yeah, you're going the wrong direction, guys. I want it more and more heavy. So I started to look into heavy bands and got into Zayo and all the kind of, Converge and all of that stuff. And I was off with the hardcore scene after that. That was me gone, early 2000s. So yeah. I don't knock nu metal whatsoever, and I've enjoyed listening to this nu metal sound, which is an old sound, as I say, but this is a fresh sound to me because I haven't listened to it in so long, and because the way they brought in the drumming and the extra elements that you didn't hear in nu metal, and left out the hip hop side of it, left out the kind of spoken verses and all of that stuff that you hear in old nu metal. So I enjoyed it very much. It's got a new sound to it and it's got an old sound to it. So there's two sides to this band, it's a two-sided coin, which is cool. That's all cool stuff. None of that was meant to knock the band in any way. That's all compliments, comparing them to great bands from the past, but also saying that they've got a newness to them that those bands didn't have. That's my roundabout point for the whole video. I know I've waffled on. How long have I gone on? 20 odd minutes. So yeah, we didn't go on an hour like we did for the whole album review. And maybe these EP reviews are going to be a bit better because my videos are about 20 minutes long anyway. We normally listen to about 4 bands. So if someone's got a 4 or 5, maybe 6 track EP, that might suit the channel a bit more than a 12-track EP like we did, or I think it was a 10-track EP where it's a good hour-long video, because I'm not sure how many people are going to get to the end of that one. I'm not sure how many people are going to get to the end of this one, because I've just waffled on for probably the last 5 minutes and said nothing anyone wants to listen to. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the vid, if you dig me waffling on. And I enjoyed the music, very, very nice. Check it out. It's coming out next Friday, or today, I think, because I'm going to put this video up on the day that it comes out. So it's coming out today. Check it out. It's sure it's on Bandcamp and all that kind of stuff. 9-stitch method. The album is called Zero Somatic Part 1. Check them out. If you like a bit of nu metal, if you like a bit of kind of different nu metal, there's 4 tracks for you to check out for sure. Hope you enjoyed that, guys. That's going to be it. I'll give it a superb, which I always forget to do right until the end of the vid when I look over and see, oh yeah, I've got a superb button there to click. It was a superb. You got it right in at the end. Anyway, see you guys. Hope you enjoyed that. Good luck with the release of the album and everything else to 9-stitch method. Good guys. Thanks for supporting the channel. See you around. Bye.